When I first learnt to windsurf, I was stuck in this catch-22 that was explained to me, where to get planing, you had to go downwind, but then I wasn't really in control, so I just went further and further downwind, couldn't get in the foot straps, and then either had to get rescued, walk a long way, and try and find a way back in somehow. And it didn't make sense to me. I was like, no one else is doing this. Do we actually have to go downwind to get planing? And the more I started to coach, the more I started to windsurf, the more I realized actually it wasn't quite as simple as people were saying. And the summary I got to, and the summary I'm going to run through just now, is no, you do not have to go downwind to get planing. Here we are. The Ridealong channel here once again in Vassiliki, nicely powered up on a 133 Carve from Starboard and a 5.9 Spy from 0.7 in some fairly strong wind. Like, I'm nicely powered up here, probably just above 15, maybe closer to 20 knots, give or take. And so that question, do you have to go downwind to get planing? Now, as you probably know from following this channel, or even from following the Patreon series and the walk-along runs that I do there, which, by the way, if you haven't joined, join me on the Patreon. There's loads more tips and coaching on there. But through this series I've been doing, I do like to simplify things, because I think that's the way I learn best, is when things are explained simply to me. And the simple summary that we're going to today is no, you don't have to go downwind to get planing and get into the straps. But clearly there's a little bit more to it. So let's slow it down and have a look at this. All good things start upwind. Right now I'm sailing upwind and I have a bit of power. To get the board planing and to get in the straps, I do have to bear away just a little bit, but bearing away doesn't necessarily mean going downwind of a beam. Now, a beam is directly across the wind, so wind in this direction, beam reach the run I'm heading on I was just a second ago, now I'm slightly upwind. Bearing away simply means going slightly further away from the wind from wherever your starting point is. Right now I'm upwind, now I'm still upwind, but I've bared away a few degrees, allowing me to get the board to accelerate and get into those foot straps. We'll play that again in slow motion so you can see what happened there. I started pretty close to the wind, powered up. I pushed through my front foot, I pushed through my front hand, allowing the board to flatten off, start to accelerate. That took me a few degrees further away from the wind, so I bared away ever so slightly, but I was still going upwind at that point. That allowed me to step in the foot straps, settle the board off, and I didn't lose any ground at all whilst doing that process. Now, to simplify it as much as I'm trying to here, it does rely on a couple of things. And those couple of things are the couple of things that usually the classic intermediate windsurfer, exactly what this video is aimed at, are guilty of doing. First of all, I am actually powered up. You have to do this in the power, in wind, and or with a big enough sail. So if you're really struggling to get going and get into the straps, do you have a big enough sail? Now I've got a decent bit of power, I can give that sail a push and a shove, and I'm now just about on a beam reach across the wind, and instantly I'm bringing it back up again. If I tried to do that same action underpowered, then yes, I would have to go a long way further downwind, but quite often that won't actually solve the problem. I'm just going downwind underpowered. So are you actually powered up? Have you got a big enough sail? Have you got a big enough board? Again, classic intermediates go too small too early. That's why I'm filming this on a 133, which might be very small for what you're used to. It all depends on your size, your skill, your sailing area, of course, so where you're learning. getting in the foot straps could be anywhere between 120 to even 180 or even 200 litres. Learning to get into those foot straps is good. So are you powered up? Have you got a big enough board? And the other big one is, are your harness lines far enough back? To be overly stereotypical, most people I coach to get into the foot straps, when I take their kit for a little test, the harness lines are set too far forward, which matches that idea of being underpowered. Maybe you have got the wind in the sail, but you can't channel that power into the board and accelerate simply because those lines are too far forward. Give them a little adjustment, hook back in, try it once again. I'm upwind. The wind has now hit me. Going to head off the wind just a couple of degrees. I'm nearly at a beam reach here, and I'll bring it back upwind as soon as I've got that board going. My vision, my head, my shoulders, my hips, and my front foot are all looking upwind all of the time, helping me to get there. Thanks as always for joining me here on the Ridealong channel. I hope these few little tips have helped you understand a little bit about why perhaps you're heading so far off downwind and not yet getting into the foot straps. My biggest tip is that all good things begin upwind. That's where we need to be doing things. And if you need more power so that you can do that, try it. Try a bigger sail. I'll see you next time back here on the Ridealong channel. Okay.